Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're describing or discussing the perils of trying to do Thailand, if you will, on the cheap. And let me be clear here. I'm talking about living here. I'm not talking about people that come here even for an extended sort of tourism-like stay, a few months, maybe even half a year. But people that are really trying to live here, and then they're trying to do everything completely on the cheap. And let me be clear, I completely understand trying to be economical. You know, you want to get value for money. That's one thing, and I totally get that. But there are folks that come over here, and one, they operate on this presumption that Thailand is or should be cheap, or cheaper than what is being presented to them. That's a really bad way to operate here. I've said it for years. I know I don't get a lot of popularity when I make these videos like this, but really, this is my best advice on this topic. You cannot think like that. Every time I see people that's just their raison d'etre, if you will, their reason for being here is to just find everything completely on the cheap, do everything on the cheap, cut corners when it comes to things like immigration. Oftentimes in the past, I noticed these were the kind of people that I would say, you know, the Thais don't really like you living here on a tourist visa, and they'd sort of scoff, and then they were the first ones that effectively couldn't get back in or got deported, or, you know, they came through an immigration checkpoint, and finally they got the wrong immigration officer, and they just weren't able to get back in, and then they're put into the system, and effectively they were kind of sidelined, if you will, from Thailand for multiple months before they could get back in, and ultimately, oftentimes, they got back in on the proper visa that they should have had to begin with, but they ended up spending a lot more money going through the hassle because they tried to do everything cheap and tried to cut corners. I'm seeing a lot of this in discussions I've seen or I've been involved with people asking me about the ED visa. This is oftentimes, and the old volunteer visa, although we've seen a lot less of that since the scandals that erupted surrounding the volunteer visa here in Thailand. But I've seen a lot of people talking about, oh, you can just live here on these types of visas and things. Hey, I've done the videos. You can go back into this channel, into the archives, and see the videos from in real time when I made them, talking about the raids on schools, supposed schools that were actually quote unquote visa mills. Again, if you're legitimately doing something, if you want to come to Thailand and spend a period of time learning something, or, you know, there's different programs out there that are legitimate, that may have a visa component. But again, you know who you are. And if you're trying to simply operate, you know, trying to obfuscate what you're doing in order to get a visa to stay here, it's not going to turn out very well. You know, and I find it really fascinating making these videos because, again, I'll get burned a lot even in person and things. People will say, oh, I don't agree with you on, I can use an ED visa to live here. Okay, fine. You know, there's a million ways to skin a cat. You do you. It's your journey. Do whatever you want. That said, I don't know how many people I've seen burned as a result of these kind of plans, if you will, of this kind of thought process. Especially at the beginning of COVID. We saw a ton of people right when COVID hit that were really in limbo and in a bad situation because they really didn't have their visa situation in order. Again, there's a way to do things sometimes and there's a way not to. I'm not saying I have the end-all be-all strategies for all people to stay in Thailand, but I like to think that we're pretty good at determining strategies and solutions for people that want to live here. I've been here 16 years. I've been through the entire bowels, if you will, of the immigration system insofar as I've been a non-immigrant, I've had a work permit, I've gone through dealing with things like residence. Ultimately, I became a citizen. You know, I've gone through all of that stuff, you know, and while, again, I'm not the end-all be-all, I don't have all the answers, we like to think we've got a pretty good repertoire of solutions around here, and unfortunately, when we deal with folks that say, oh, there's a cheaper way to do that, or, you know, I don't need to go through this, I'm going to cut that corner, whatever. Okay, have at it. That's on you, but, you know, be prepared to deal with the consequences.